Hey, and welcome to Open, the show opening the Bronx and the rest of the world to you. I'm Brittany Schuyler, filling in for Darren Jaime, and today we'll update you on what's happening in and around our borough and New York City. February is American Heart Month, and even small changes can make a big difference in keeping your heart healthy. We are joined by a top cardiologist to share practical tips you can start at home to protect your heart. Next, childcare costs are forcing many New York City parents to make tough choices. We'll look at new data and how recent state investments in childcare could help families. After that, we'll dive into a platform that is helping New Yorkers navigate the renting market by providing insights and the necessary tools to make more confident choices. Then, tax season is here. We'll sit down with a tax expert to break down the latest updates and what you need to know before filing. Lastly, a new institute is launching to tackle issues of justice, inclusion, and community leadership. We'll hear about this exciting partnership and what it means for students, educators, and the Bronx community. So stay tuned. All this and much more is headed your way because we're now officially open. Hey everyone, I'm Brittany Schuyler, and you're now watching Open, a live program bringing the Bronx and New York City straight to you. We want to welcome our viewers to the Manhattan Neighborhood Network, as Open is being broadcasted simultaneously on MNN's channels. You can stay connected to us on all social media platforms at Bronxnet TV. Some things have been going on throughout this past week. Let's take you through it with some Bronx updates. In local news, Bronx leaders announced $1 million in funding for new Argus security cameras at the NYPD's 47th precinct as part of an effort to strengthen public safety in high crime areas. Our Bronxnet reporter, Nicole Rosado, has the story.
New York State Senator Jamal T. Bailey, New York State Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie, and New York City Council member Kevin Riley held a press conference to announce a $1 million funding allocation for the installation of Argus security cameras at the NYPD's 47th precinct.
I think the reception of the community is going to be great. The Argus cameras, like I said, they just increase the amount of public safety. It's not a privacy issue. It's not about privacy. They are going in places where we're experiencing crime, where we've had shootings, shots fired, robberies, and then we go out to do investigations and we don't have video. So the more times that we have occurrences, because we do a whole data analysis where we put these cameras.
Crimes can be more difficult to solve when there aren't cameras or evidence. Officers frequently have to make trips into the area to obtain the film. Installing the NYPD's own camera in high-traffic areas will help to prevent and solve crimes more quickly and easily.
I don't just represent here. I live in this precinct. My family, my wife, my 3 children, we really appreciate the great work that the 47 does. So we want to make sure that they have more tools to be able to continue to do the great work. It's a conversation that we've heard from the precinct, we've heard from community members. And when you hear from the people that are doing the work and the people that live in the community, it only makes sense to be able to commit the resources to making sure that this community has what it needs.
The funding will enhance technology to help officers improve public safety in the district. The press conference will showcase not only the senator's new commitment, but also the combined support of all government partners who have worked to ensure the district's safety and well-being.
Public safety is one of the top concerns that we have in the area, but we also understand that police is not the only way for public safty. So we always try to do other measures, but we also have to give our police station as much resource as possible for them to be efficient. And as which was stated here today, cameras are like invisible witnesses. A lot of people within the community try their best not to get involved into certain criminal activities. So when you have cameras out there that could prevent that, involvement from community members, where we could kind of, pinpoint where incidents are happening, this is why it's important.
This is an opportunity to demonstrate our common dedication to unified effort, teamwork, and protecting the community.
We want to make sure that residents know we understand and we want to minimize as much as we can the disruption and the impact that violence plays in our community. We want to send a message that it is not acceptable for anyone to come in our community and engage in violent behavior, whether it's traffic violence, domestic violence, it's gun violence, all of that of what we've experienced in this borough.
Reporting for Bronxnet, Nicole Rosado.
Thanks, Nicole. That's all for the Bronx updates. We'll have more open after the break.
We're gonna start the show right now. This is my favorite part. Ready in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey, this is Angel, and I am one of the instructors for the in-studio production. Here at Bronxnet, we offer classes that can help you elevate, expand, and start your television career. All you have to do is sign up at bronxnet.org/education. For the past 7 years, I have been in various productions, spanning from talk shows, independent films, news reports, art displays, teachings, musical performances, and many more. Ain't that right, Angel? Yeah, you're absolutely right, Angel. There are a lot of creative individuals that we're just waiting to sign up for the class. And if I may, can I also express Thank you, Angel. That's all the time we have left. Visit bronxnet.org/education and become a producer by taking the course. The class I offer is also in English, en español y también bilingüe. Nos vemos en la próxima clase.
Welcome back. February is American Heart Month, a time to focus on keeping our hearts healthy. Cardiovascular disease is still the leading cause of death in the U.S., and while many of us think heart problems only show up later in life, the truth is risk factors can start much earlier. Today, we're joined by Dr. Carlos Navarro, cardiologist at Montefiore Health System, to talk about how we can protect our hearts and lower the risk of heart disease. Dr. Navarro, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So to start things off, for those who might not know, can you briefly explain what cardiovascular disease is and why it's such a major health concern?
Yeah, in a very simplified way, cardiovascular disease, as its name implies, is a disease of the heart and the blood vessels that communicate to the heart. Specifically, the arterial system, the venous system has its problems, the heart has other problems. But I think for more on the side of prevention, we should focus on arteriosclerotic heart disease, which is practically the blood vessels, which are like plumbing, just get full of plaques and deposit. And with time, they close and cause what we call an infarct, which means it's a cut of the supply of oxygen and blood to certain organs. For example, the brain, you get a stroke, that's a cardiovascular event. A heart attack is a cardiovascular event. And when you lose a limb, for example, in patients with diabetes, because of poor circulation, that will be also considered a cardiovascular event.
So that's actually interesting because it's really showing that everything is essentially connected to your cardiovascular system and you know, the different consequences of that. So as we mentioned, a lot of people think that sometimes risk factors show up later in life, but sometimes they don't. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the risk factors that people tend to overlook?
Yeah, so when we start talking about risk factors, we should start thinking about two different types of risk factors. There's risk factors that can be modified, meaning that you can change. And there's other risk factors that cannot be modified. We call them non-modifiable risk factors. That will be your age. You cannot change your age, which we could, but we can, not yet at least. And another one is the genetics. What we inherit from grandma, grandpa, mom, and dad is in our genes. And so far, we are not able to modify that. We'll see in the future. The things that you can modify, I would just try to simplify it to make it easy for everybody. The number one will be, for me, just stop smoking. If you don't smoke, great. If you're smoking, there's always time to stop. It's never too late to stop smoking. That would significantly reduce your risk of having cardiovascular disease. The other one is to manage your weight. The most simplified way that we have is the body mass index. It's not perfect, but it's simple, can be done at home. It doesn't require any tools, and it gives you an idea of how good is your weight or how bad you are in your weight. Ideally, a good BMI would be between 19 and 25. It has to be think about it in individual basis, because there's certain people that can have a very big BMI and practically be completely healthy. Uh, for example, a bodybuilder will be one of those. So you should try to aim between 19 and 25. That will be an appropriate weight. It's a calculation between your height and your weight. The other one will be physical activity. Physical activity today, people are paying more attention of being active and do exercise. I practically tell all my patients any kind of exercise that you can do for 15 minutes, 3 times a week is good for me. Uh, if you like weights, you can do weights. If you like running, walking, bicycle, swimming, all of those are great. If you can do it consistently, for, as I said, 15 minutes, 3 times a week should be more than appropriate. These days, we are trying to focus on women for other types of health benefits like bone density and keeping their muscles, to kind of do some kind of resistant training at least 2 times a week. That means practically lifting weights. And practically the most controversial one, and the one that has been more in the news lately, is diet. We consider only two diets to increase your life expectancy, and those are the Mediterranean diet and what we call the DASH diet, which is practically the same as the Mediterranean diet. The difference is that it has practically no salt. And it's a diet of about stopping hypertension. That's what it means, DASH diet. So I think those four things, if you take it into account and try to go after them, you will practically reduce significantly your risk of having some form of cardiovascular disease in the future.
Thank you for sharing that, especially the 15 minutes 3 times a week, because I think a lot of times people overthink it, and because it sounds so big and so grand and sometimes so scary, they're like, I have only but so much amount of time in my day, so they tend not to do it at all. But it is those little steps that really do make the difference. But also, can you talk about the effects that stress and lack of sleep have on your heart health?
Yes, if we talk about stress, the main problem in the medical field for stress is that there's no way to measure it. Only people that are experiencing the stress can tell you about it and tell you what kind of level of stress they have. Practically, there's no intervention from my part that will alleviate your stress. What we know, and it's very clearly studied, and we have very good data about it, is that exercising tends to decrease stress significantly. Another one that we also know, and practically the evidence is concrete on this, is to have between 7 and 9 hours of sleep is where you should, as the golden area. There is individual cases of people that can sleep 6 hours and they are fine. We haven't seen anybody that can sleep less than 5 hours and be fine. Oversleeping more than 9 hours also is not beneficial.
So the whole, sleeping 12 hours during your weekend to catch up during your weekday, it's not helping, is it?
Yeah, you never catch up on your sleep.
No, never. But, can you also tell our viewers what steps they can take to start, keeping track of the risk factors, right? So hypertension, high cholesterol. What are some things they could do at home to keep track and then also to help improve that?
Yeah, when you hit the age of 40, I will say that's when you have to start paying more attention to it. I will encourage everybody to buy a blood pressure machine. They are completely automatic. They use AA, sometimes AAA batteries. They don't occupy much space, and they are completely automatic. So you just put it on your left arm. I would recommend use the cuff that goes in the arm, and check your blood pressure practically every morning and at night before bed. You can do it for a week. You can write it in a piece of paper, and you can see the trend of how your blood pressure is behaving. If your blood pressure goes beyond 140 systolic, that's the big number always, and diastolic, which is the lower number, to be between 140/90, that's where we want you to be, below that number. If you are like around 130/80, you should start try to think, what things you can modify. The one that most of the time like gives you great results is just cutting off salt completely. If you can just take salt away from your diet, that will dramatically improve your blood pressure values.
Dr. Navarro, thank you so much. We are unfortunately out of time, but thank you so much. We've learned so much in this short amount of time, so thank you.
My pleasure.
For more information, you can visit the website at montefiore.org/heart. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back with more Open right after this.
We are the Eco Leaders.
We learned that everything starts with ourselves. Then we have to educate ourselves. Then we have to build community and use our imagination.
Eco Leaders, you're from the future to save the past. Heal the planet and make it last. We find solutions with knowledge slides. Venture forth, Eco Leaders, you're Eco
Welcome back. New data from Robin Hood's Poverty Tracker, released in partnership with Columbia University, reveals that childcare affordability is a growing hardship for many New York City parents. Recent state investments in childcare aim to ease that burden for families across the city. Joining us today is Sarah Oltmans, Robin Hood's Chief of Grant Strategy, to walk us through the findings and what they mean for parents across New York City. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So to start things off, let's talk about this poverty tracker. For those who may not know, what is it?
So the Poverty Tracker is a survey of New Yorkers that Robin Hood launched in partnership with Columbia's Center on Poverty and Social Policy. And unlike other surveys, what we do is we follow the same households year over year for a number of years and multiple times a year. And this allows us to get a really detailed picture of poverty, but we also look at things like health and mental health, as well as what we call material hardship. So this means not being able to maybe cover your basic needs like rent or food or utilities. So it gives us this really incredible picture. We've been doing it for over 10 years, and we really get to see the details of poverty, but also the affordability challenges New Yorkers are facing.
And when we talk about childcare hardship, what does that really mean for families on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so there's a couple of aspects of it. So the first is costs. So if people cannot afford their childcare, then they are experiencing childcare hardship. And this may mean that they have to cut back on the hours they're using or stop using childcare altogether. The other piece is whether or not it's acceptable to them. So are they having to piece together week-to-week care, maybe relying on neighbors or family members, but not really having consistent, reliable child care? And how this plays out is sometimes it means that people are not taking a new job, they're not able to take a promotion or cutting back on hours.
Yeah, and part of the tracker stated that 15% face hardship amongst New York City. So tell me what does that necessarily mean? And then tell me also what else stood out to you in the numbers?
Yeah, so one of the big things that stood out to me was just that it's not felt equally. Some families are facing more childcare hardship than others. In particular, we see that younger parents, so parents under the age of 35, Black parents, about 30% of them are experiencing some sort of childcare hardship. Interestingly, we also see that mothers report much higher, almost double the rate of childcare hardship than fathers do. And then the other piece I'd point out is just around single mothers who really are struggling with costs. We see that they're experiencing childcare hardship at about double the rate of mothers who are either partnered or married.
And tell me, how does that affordability, how does it connect to parents, on how consistently they can work throughout the year?
Yeah, we see that if you don't have stable, reliable childcare, it's like this vicious cycle. You can't stay employed. We've seen from past data from our poverty tracker that when the 3K program originally rolled out in New York, that those neighborhoods, mothers were able to work at a higher rate and they were able to work at a full-time rate, at a much higher rate overall. In this current data, we see that people who are experiencing childcare hardship are much more likely to be working part-time than full-time.
And so with that, right, we have our viewers watching here today. Tell me, why should they not see childcare, not just as a family issue, but as a city issue as a whole?
Yeah, I think this is a really good point. So we think of childcare as really just this incredible 1-2 combo. It allows parents to work and make sure that they're providing for their family, but it's also an opportunity to provide incredible early educational experiences for children during this time of life when their brains are developing really quickly. So we see this as really a generational poverty fighting issue. Another thing I'd just point out is that in a big part of New York City's childcare system, part of it is run by family childcare providers. And these are really small business owners, they're entrepreneurs, they're in our communities across New York City. And so by investing in childcare, we're also investing in our communities and those small business owners.
You know, it was funny when we were at the event, that's what a lot of people had spoken about, you know, when it was talking to business owners. It's, you essentially have to create this childcare for them so then they can work for you, because something else that they talked about a lot was people moving out of New York City because they can't afford the childcare here. So now they also can't afford to work here.
Right, yeah, we see that that's a common issue. And I think the pandemic really brought this to a head where we saw childcare providers having to close their doors, people leaving New York really because they couldn't afford or they couldn't really find the childcare that they needed.
Absolutely. And now Governor Hochul's administration recently announced a historic $4.5 billion expansion of childcare in New York. What impact do you expect this investment to have on families here in New York City?
Yeah, so this is a really exciting opportunity for New York City and New York State to continue to be a leader in early childhood education and in childcare. It would expand access to the 3K program as well as provide more care for those younger children. So 2Care is what the program's called. So I think it's a really big opportunity for us to make sure that we're investing and making sure that parents don't have to make this difficult trade-off between whether or not they can provide for their family and making sure that their kids are cared for, that they're learning, and they're in a stable, safe place.
Absolutely. And something that you had just mentioned was about the program also helping out children in their most formative years and really giving them that developmental, those developmental, you know, courses, so to speak. So tell me, how do you see these investments not just working for the sole child and the sole family, but the overall social outcomes in New York City?
Yeah, so we know that when we invest early that there's these really long-term impacts, and so by investing in those early years when a child is in, you know, toddler, 3K, pre-K, all those early years really lead into better kindergarten readiness and then ultimately long-term economic outcomes.
Absolutely. And now, even with the historic investment, there are still going to be gaps and challenges that still remain when it comes to childcare for New York City and New York City families. So tell me, what are some of those gaps that would still need to be filled?
So the biggest thing we're thinking about is the childcare workforce. This is a place we saw, like I said, during the pandemic, a lot of people had to close their doors or left the profession altogether. It's one of the most underpaid workforces of any industry. And so as we think about expanding, we need to think about that pipeline of childcare providers and make sure that these are sustainable quality jobs.
And so that includes wages, healthcare, the whole.
Exactly, and just making sure that they're able to stay in the profession. I mean, these are the childcare providers are the ones that are caring for our children, they're teaching our children, so we need to make sure we're investing in them as well.
Absolutely. And now also tell me, how do childcare vouchers work, right? Can any parent get one? Why is there a waiting list for vouchers? Can we break that down?
Yeah, so over the past about 4 years, we've had a huge expansion in vouchers, which allows parents to basically lower the cost that they're paying out of pocket. So in many cases, parents are paying only maybe a couple dollars a week to get childcare, but there are some income requirements, so need to be under a certain income. But it allows you to decide, do I want to go to family childcare? Do I want to go to center-based care? It gives parents a little bit more flexibility. So we've seen a huge increase in that, but there's still demand. And I think that that's what we're trying to get at, partially through this expansion that Governor Hochul announced. But there's more work to be done to make sure that people have the options that they need.
I was just going to ask on top of that, will the new proposals help expand the programming and the backing, or?
It won't specifically expand vouchers. It's going to be more focused on this 2Care program and the expansion of 3K. But the vouchers will continue to exist, and many parents will rely on those, especially for the younger children, the toddlers, and the infants.
Absolutely. And just, as we wrap up on this segment, is there anything in particular that our families should know about gaining access to childcare in New York City?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of different options out there, and parents need to think about what works best for them and what kind of care. And some people want care close to home, some closer to work, and so being able to look into those options, especially as they expand, and make sure that they're aware of these new programs and opportunities.
Absolutely. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
For more information, you can visit the website at robinhood.org. We've got more here on Open right after the break.
Only 57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. "55% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. "34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. Bronxnet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the Bronxnet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, visit bronxnet.org to learn more.
Welcome back. Finding an apartment in New York City can be stressful. Rent is high, listings move fast, and it's not always easy to know which landlords are trustworthy or which apartments are truly rent stabilized. With the new Rent Transparency Act in effect, tenants will have more information about their rights and the status of their apartments. Joining us today is Allia Mohamed, CEO and co-founder of Openigloo, a platform that helps renters get clear and reliable information on apartments so they can make smarter rental decisions. Allia, welcome back.
Hi, Brittany. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Thanks for joining us again this morning. Now, we spoke to you a few years back, but for our new viewers, can you tell us what is Openigloo? Can you explain a little bit about the platform, what it does for New York City renters?
Absolutely. Openigloo is a marketplace for New York City renters to find quality apartments from reputable landlords. So renters are able to read and share reviews about their rental experiences anonymously on Openigloo, access city data on any address, so they can do their own background check on a building and landlord before making a decision, in the same way that landlords are allowed to do their due diligence and background checks on tenants before giving them an apartment.
I like that you mentioned that. It's like, listen, the landlords get to do their due diligence, but guess what? So do the tenants and so do the renters.
Right.
It's important to know what you're getting yourself into, right?
Absolutely. It's so important. It's one of the major things that we encourage renters to do, which is this is a big financial decision. Just because you're a renter does not mean that this is a quick decision you should make, over a Saturday. This is, in some cases, especially in New York City, the majority of people's incomes, and they should really be intentional and careful before signing that 100-page lease.
Absolutely. And now, can you tell us a little bit about how does Open Igloo differ from other apps or other tools on the market?
Yeah, our main mission is to bring transparency to New York City housing. So a lot of other platforms, they're not going to give you that access to who is this landlord? How many buildings do they own? Do they have a good reputation? Are their renters happy? Even other important information like, is this building rent stabilized? Are there apartments in this building that are rent stabilized? Does the new good cause eviction laws apply to this building? New York City is a very complex rental market. There are dozens of rent regulations that have been passed and designed to help renters, but they need to know about them and they need to enforce them and hold their landlords accountable to them. So we're really trying to shine a light on all of that important regulation that your average platform just won't.
That's very true. And now, something else that Open Igloo does is you guys combine authentic certified feedback with tenant experience. Tell me why that was important to give users the experience of both.
Yeah, it's really, really important to look at all of the data points that are at our disposal. So you look at the city data has a lot of really valuable data. Are there any 311 complaints? Are there any open violations? Are there any litigation history from housing court? We can scrape all of that information. But it doesn't tell the entire story, right? What is the context? Just because a building might have an open violation doesn't mean that the landlord hasn't been working tirelessly with the city to try and get those things resolved. And that's where the feedback from renters can really help provide that context, right? What is going on, boots on the ground? And when I was apartment hunting, I would just stand out before Open Igloo existed. That's why I started Open Igloo. I would just stand outside of buildings waiting for people walking in and out saying, hey, do you live here? You know, what's the story? Should I move in? And I would get information, Brittany, like, this building shows really well, but every single time it rains, the windows leak, right? And you don't necessarily get that kind of feedback in the city data, which is why it was really important for us to create a platform where renters could have a voice and really give those experiences to future renters.
That is so useful because you're telling them the information that they're not going to get through a walkthrough.
Absolutely. A lot of times you're not learning what's wrong with the apartment until you're already 2 or 3 months into the lease. And then by that time, it's way too late. You've signed, you're paid, you're stuck until the end of that term. So it's really, really important to get information that really only existing renters can share because a lot of brokers, a lot of landlords won't share that information. The one thing that we're really excited about at Open Igloo is we've partnered with owners that believe in this transparency. They want renters to know the good, bad, and ugly before they make a decision, because that's ultimately going to result in a better match.
Absolutely. And now with the new Rent Transparency Act in full effect, can you explain the law and why does it matter for tenants?
Yeah, the Rent Transparency Act is a really interesting law that recently went into effect that essentially mandates landlords to put a notice in the common areas of the building if there are rent stabilized units in the building. And essentially, what it's meant to do is to alert renters that live there that, hey, you might actually live in a rent stabilized apartment. And this is what this means. And this is how to triple check and make sure that your landlord is following those rules. So, really quickly, there are nearly 1 million rent stabilized apartments in New York City. That's almost 50% of all of the rental units. And if you have one of those apartments, you are entitled to a renewal every single year, and your rent can only go up a certain amount. And that amount is voted on by the Rent Guidelines Board every single June. The challenge is a lot of New Yorkers just don't know that their apartment is stabilized. So if their landlord gives them a 10% increase one year, what ends up happening is they just end up moving because they can't afford the increase, really not realizing that that increase was illegal. So this Rent Transparency Act is going to alert a lot of renters to the fact that they're rent stabilized. It's one of the things that we've been doing digitally on Open Igloo. So we've labeled every single address in New York City if there are stabilized units. So all you have to do is go to openigloo.com, type in your address, and we will tell you if there are stabilized units. Or thanks to the Rent Transparency Act, you could poke your head into a common area and see if that notice is present.
That's so funny. I was just going to ask you, how would you know if your apartment was rent stabilized? Because sometimes they won't tell you with that transparency. They won't tell you, and now you're getting hit with all these extra charges. But for renters who want to find a rent stabilized apartment in New York City, what advice do you have for them?
So you really want to start early and you want to be patient, right? So typically rent stabilized apartments, exist in buildings that were built before 1974 that have over 6 units, but there are a lot of new construction buildings that have stabilized units as well. So a lot of those new buildings that you see going up in the Bronx, for example, a lot of those are stabilized, even though they're expensive and even though they have a lot of amenities. So it's really important to narrow your search to the buildings that have stabilized units. So for example, renting a garden unit in a 2-family home, very unlikely that that apartment will be stabilized. Renting in a condo or a co-op, those apartments are not going to be stabilized. So really setting the strategy and targeting the buildings that have the stabilized units is number one. And this is one of the things that we do at Openigloo is make it easier for renters to filter for those listings. So you go on, you say, hey, I'm looking for a 2-bedroom in this neighborhood. This is my budget. Only show me units that are in stabilized buildings so we can really narrow that search for you.
What a productive tool. That is amazing. And we know it's so hard to find apartments here in New York City. So now that Openigloo really makes it transparent, makes it more easy, and it makes it, just available and accessible to New Yorkers. It's truly a remarkable tool. So Allia, thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
For more information, you can visit the website at openigloo.com. Stick around, we'll be right back. Welcome back. Tax season 2026 is officially here, and it's shaping up to be one of the most interesting in years. From bigger standard deductions to new breaks for families, seniors, and workers, there are changes that could affect how much you owe or how big your refund will be. Joining us today to break down what you need to know is Yolanda Durant, Stakeholder Liaison for the IRS. Yolanda, thank you so much for joining us today.
No problem. How are you?
I'm doing well, and you?
Good.
So this is a very interesting topic to talk about,
Right.
as we know that technically this should be a tax season that people are paying attention to.
Correct.
Tell us how come.
So we have all the new tax changes underneath the one big beautiful bill. The no tax on overtime, the no tax on tips. Then we also have a bigger standard deduction for our seniors. And of course, if you purchase a new vehicle, then we have that loan also. Yeah.
And so tell me, who is most likely to feel these changes? Everyday workers, families, seniors? Who's going to maybe not benefit, but feel the most?
I feel it's going to be across the board, including our small business owners and entrepreneurs. It's going to be a little difficult. Change is, change is change. But once you know what you need to know, I think it'll be very simple.
And the standard deduction went up again.
Yes,
So is
it
that
is.
still the best option?
It
for
all
everyone?
depends. Some people do need to itemize, especially because we do have a higher limit for our SALT tax, which is our state and local income tax. So if you have property, if you have an estate, you may want to look into itemizing and see which one would be in your best interest. You want to make sure you're getting all your deductions.
And there are several new deductions this year, speaking of. So tell me, what does that mean for taxpayers?
So you want to make sure that if you are a W-2 employee, if your pay is on your W-2, your overtime, or any tips, if you're in that type of industry, that you are making sure that you are calculating it correctly and knowing what box to put everything in.
And sometimes when we go through tax season, some people are like, you know what, I'm just going to do it myself. I'm just going to do it myself. I'm going to fill it out myself. And so, like you said, make sure you're filling things out correctly. Make sure what happens if, you know, somebody's like, listen, let me just get this over with. They rush through it and now things aren't in the right place, things aren't correctly calculated. Tell me a little bit about how that can affect the person.
So one, you may not get the bigger refund that you're looking for. It can result in you maybe owing a balance that you weren't expecting. Or you'll get a letter from us, which is now just delaying your whole entire process, saying something is wrong, or we're looking for information that you can't provide because you put it in the wrong box.
Okay. And so we just spoke about people who are potentially in industries that they'll, you know, tax on overtime and tips, but also for seniors and retirees. What is different this year for them filing their taxes?
So we have the expanded seniors. So what that means, if you're 65 and older, you're getting an extra bonus on top of your standard deductions. And that doesn't matter if you do standard or if you itemize, and that's up to $6,000.
Okay. And so for people who made big purchases this year, a car, home improvements, how does that impact their tax bill this year?
So if you purchase a car for individual use, not for a business, and if you took out a loan or you just purchased it and it's made here in the United States, then you are eligible for that no tax on your car interest. So if you are not a owner of that vehicle, you may not be eligible, and you need to check the VIN number to make sure where it was manufactured.
Okay. And how do these new deductions change the final tax bill for, again, somebody filing at home?
So in most instances, people probably will see a bigger refund. We are changing that system as well. We're going to monetize payments. So if you're looking for a check, which most seniors are looking for a paper check, it may cause a delay in you getting your refund because we're trying to make everything digital. So we want everyone to have a bank account when they file so that we can direct deposit your refund, and if you need to pay us, the same way instead of having paper checks.
I know, everybody direct deposit, but you wake up, you see that notification, I'm like, got it. It's here.
Just easier and safer with all of the scams. And, you know, especially for our seniors, we don't want anything to happen to their payments. So it just makes it easier all around.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about for parents. What changes should they know before filing?
So parents should always make sure that, one, they are eligible to claim the child that they are claiming. We do have a higher standard for adoption credits as well. So if you are interested in adopting or you happen to adopt last year, so you should know that that amount has also increased, which will also help you on your taxes. But any after-school activities, any other programs, medical bills that can be itemized, things like that.
Okay. And so, you know, as families are hearing about something called a Trump account, what should parents know about that?
Well, there's more to come. It's fairly new. It hasn't officially rolled out yet. We will have more information on our website at irs.gov when it comes out. And if you're looking to, you know, enhance or grow your family's worth as a minor, then I would say look into it and do your due diligence.
Okay. And so just from what with this, you know, there's still more information to come, but essentially with this is like an investment account.
It would be more like an investment saving type of account, correct?
Okay. And so I want to go back again to the people who are filing at home, right? And for the people who just want to make tax season easier, let's talk about what are some things that they can do to make it easier on them.
I would say by now you should already have a folder with receipts, all your documents. If you think with all the changes you need more time, file an extension. You don't want to get stuck at the end and then you rush and make a mistake. So I would say, especially with the new changes, file for an extension. It gives you until October to file, not until to pay. It's just an extension to file. If you owe, you should make a voluntary payment before April 15th.
Okay, that's interesting actually. So if you owe and then you file afterwards, like if you file in October and then you would owe after that.
So when it comes to owing, all penalties and interest will start at October 15th.
Okay.
Your extension to file gives you until October, but it's not an extension to pay.
Okay. She said, get that right. Let's make sure. And just, what are some pitfalls that people tend to fall into when they do decide to file at home and they're not doing things correctly?
One, rushing, not having all the documentation available, and then they're going back and forth, they're starting and ending. If you need tax professional help, we also do have a VITA location for low-income families, and then you can get some help.
Okay, so Yolanda, thank you so much for joining us. I feel
Thank
like we
you.
learned so much. I'm ready to file my taxes, ready to do them correctly. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
For more information, you can visit irs.org. Stay with us. We'll be back after the break.
.7% of Bronxnites currently experience food insecurity. Meanwhile, instead of these nice, colorful foods, this is the best food that they have access to. If this sounds like you, there are a bunch of resources to get healthy food for free or cheap. If you want to help, you might consider donating or volunteering in one of these places. Community fridges like this one are all over the city and allow New Yorkers to conveniently donate extra food to people who might need it. Go to this link and find your nearest one. Food banks and pop-up events like these provide millions of healthy meals to families in need. These organizations are distributing meals to Bronxites as we speak and are always accepting donations and volunteers.
Welcome back. The University of Mount St. Vincent is launching a new institute in partnership with Dedication to Community. The D2C Justice Institute will serve as a hub for education, training, and community engagement, helping students, educators, and local leaders develop solutions around justice, restorative practices, and inclusion. Joining us to talk more about this exciting partnership are Dr. Suzanne Burns, president of the University of Mount St. Vincent, and M. Quentin Williams, founder and CEO of Dedication to Community. Thank you both for joining us here today.
Thank you for having us.
Of course. So Dr. Burns, to start off with you, tell me, how did you meet Q and how did this partnership emerge?
I was so very fortunate to be introduced to Q from a trustee of the University of Mount St. Vincent, Dr. Rosalba Del Vecchio Corrado. And she so beautifully said, because she was the president of the Yonkers Public School Board, we just honored someone who has had this incredible career and has this incredible impact in the community on issues of justice. I think you should meet him. There's something there. I'm not sure what it is, but there's something there. And I met Q, and we had a conversation. I heard his story. And our conversation went from, this could be some interesting collaboration, to why aren't we doing this now? Because the alignment in mission and values and commitment to justice was so very clear from the very beginning.
Absolutely. And now tell us a little bit about what Dedication to Community Justice Institute, and like you said, why now?
So the D2C Justice Institute at the University of Mount St. Vincent is about building a bridge for understanding, for education, for conversation, for respect for human dignity on the complex issues of justice. And so this opportunity brings our students curriculum, courses, it brings the opportunity for training, it brings the opportunity to bring in community experts and people who are not just theoretical advisors on issues of justice, but actual practitioners in the field to help us better understand how can we be a part of this movement to bring justice not only to our internal community, but to our external community and beyond.
That's amazing. And now, Q, coming over to you, tell us about what appealed you to locating the Justice Institute at UMSV.
First of all, it's because of Dr. Burns. She is perhaps the most forward-leaning leader I've ever met in academia. So the decision was easy. It was just, what were we going to do? And once we figured out what we were going to do, it became even easier. Everything started to come together. But here's the kicker on the whole thing. I grew up right down the street. So I've had these great experiences around the nation, going to different jobs, organizations that were all dream jobs. But I came home, and that's what this really signified to me, was an opportunity to come home and do something at home, because I grew up on Warburton Avenue in Yonkers. And if you know Yonkers and the Bronx, if you know Warburton Avenue and Riverdale Avenue, they're basically the same street separated by Getty Square. So coming home was really important, and coming home to a leader like Dr. Burns and the folks who she has on staff was a dream come true.
That's amazing. And well, like you said, you are at home, and the theme of the Justice Conversation series is Justice is Practice. What does that mean in real everyday terms?
We talk about the issues of justice all the time, and we merely discuss them. This is something that we do in society and have done for generations. But very rarely do you see collaboration that takes action to find solutions, to change the way justice is implemented. You know, we have one chance at justice. It's a proactive thing. It's a preventative thing. And if we don't get it right, then all we're talking about is accountability. So we believe that by taking action through education, by being embedded on the campus of the University of Mount St. Vincent, we're taking appropriate action to be proactive, preemptive, preventative when it comes to issues of economic, social, criminal, procedural, and restorative justice.
Absolutely, that's amazing. And now, Dr. Burns, tell me, from your perspective, why was UMSV the right home for a justice-focused institute, and how does the Justice Institute reflect the university's mission?
So by our founding by the Sisters of Charity of New York more than 175 years ago, we were about issues of justice. The sisters founded the first academy because they knew that there were women, young girls, not having access to education. There was an injustice that they saw needed to be solved for. So it's in our DNA. What that looks like today, how we live our justice and mission today, is that we're a Hispanic, proud Hispanic serving institution. We're a minority serving institution. We're an institution that more than half of our students are first generation college students. Many of our students are Pell eligible, and many of our students are pursuing careers in education and healthcare, in business and industries. That justice is a complex issue that we know we can bring the conversation back to, but what about human dignity? What about our common humanity? And what about our obligations to each other? And so by our founding and instill today, it makes so much sense for us to establish this D2C Justice Institute at the University of Mount St. Vincent. And when you hear Q speak about the work he's done and the ways in which they have so beautifully lived through the dedication to community programs, that justice in humanity, it was just such a perfect fit for us.
That's amazing. And I love that you spoke about just the importance of, you know, the human dignity and really that underlying issue when it comes to that. And so, Q, going back to you, the Bronx faces challenges related to justice, safety, and opportunity. How will the Justice Institute address these challenges?
That's a great question. When we started this institute, the one thing that Dr. Burns mentioned that really stuck out to me was she wanted this to be for the community. that is the community on campus and off campus. So she wants to invite the off-campus community on campus because she considers the community to be both together. And so we're looking forward to making this a community institute. So the folks in the Bronx, in Yonkers, in the 5 boroughs, they are welcome to be a part of this.
That's amazing. And Dr. Burns, tell me, the community and the students are invited for this. Tell me, what do you hope they get out of this?
Yeah, so I want to acknowledge Q's comment about the Bronx as well. I say all the time, we are of and for the Bronx. And so that community connection is essential. So what do students get out of this? I'm so excited for our students in that they're going to have access to courses on issues of justice that they may not have had access to otherwise. But because of this partnership, we have leading academics and experts in the field who are going to offer those courses, new curriculums, new academic programs. They'll have the opportunity to engage each other in dialogue about issues of, again, these complex world problems that we know, especially right now, when we have this political divide, we have this divide in our country, that they can learn how to approach those conversations with respect for human dignity, with respect for understanding the complexity of those problems. I'm so excited for our students to have access to bringing people from the Bronx into our campus for training, for real world conversations, to sit down to find solutions to those complex problems.
And tell me, looking towards the future, looking years ahead, what does success look like for the Justice Institute?
Yeah, success for us looks like our students doing internships into the D2C Justice Institute, externships with different organizations that are about justice, be them organizations that are about security and safety or policy or so forth. It's about offering new academic programs in these areas. It's about bringing those experts to our campus for convenings on conversations about how do we come together in this moment to really solve these problems. And for the University of Mount St. Vincent to be the place to go for those convenings. And I'm absolutely certain that the conversation won't just be about the Bronx, although the Bronx is a central part of it, but how can we have this impact nationally together with the D2C Justice Institute to welcome people into a place where they are seen, where they are valued, where their voice matters in the conversation.
That is amazing. This partnership, and Q calling it home, it feels something that's so genuine and so authentic, and bringing it back to the word dignity, which is so much of what people need to kind of see right now and people need to learn about right now. So I want to thank you both for taking the time to speaking with us today, because this was an amazing conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
For more information, you can visit their websites at mountstvincent.edu and dedicationtocommunity.org. We've come to the end of our show today. I'd like to thank all of our guests for joining and you, the viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of today's show, you can catch the recablecast on Optimum Channel 67, Verizon Fios 2133, or watch anytime on the web at bronxnet.org. You can catch a new episode of Open with Rena Valentin on Friday. This wraps up this episode for us. I'm Brittany Schuyler, and I'll talk to you soon.